wanna stay ahead of the curve, then follow my words. All we doing, teach, train, innovate, solve, yeah. Teach, train, innovate, solve. If you wanna be ahead of the curve, then follow my words.
Well, good evening, everyone, to TTIS, where we build confident, empowered educators through empathy, strategy, providing you with tools that you can use today. And we have a wonderful session today, preparing you for Domain 5. I'm calling it, let's write, of SPED 186 exam. This exam is a great opportunity for you to showcase what you know in this profession. But I wanted to actually start out with you by asking you something. And that is, have you looked at the written response examples for SPED 186? If not, no worries. I'm going to drop the link down in the comment section for those who haven't seen it before. It has multiple tabs. And my instant thought when I saw it was, wow. When responding to the questions, you might be thinking, I know this, but maybe I don't know how to say it. And you're not alone. I'm a proud author, and I'm sure that this can be overwhelming for those who aren't writers. Or maybe your struggle is how to think through the data and respond like the exam expects you to. Truth time here. Domain 4 is not only about writing, it is about decision making with evidence. My soapbox is still the same. Most educators don't fill these domains because they lack knowledge. And tonight, I'm going to show you exactly how to combat those feelings of uncertainty. Here's how we're going to approach it. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about what to expect. The next part I'm going to discuss with you is, what does the rubric actually state? That's going to be a brief overview, but I'm also going to leave a link down in our show notes so that you can look at the rubric fully on your own. And then I want to give you a strategy, a framework, and of course, walk you through some scenarios. And in the end, I want to give you a pep talk. Why? Because some people have already psyched themselves out to think that they can't pass this part because they're not good writers. When what I said to you before is true, you are a great decision maker. And so let's get right into what to expect. I already said about these multiple tabs that you're going to see, but Domain 4, it's worth 20% of the exam. And I really want to ground you into what the exam is asking you. They're going to give you data, lots of it, a student profile, almost like a snapshot of what the class would be for that child. It's going to list some common things within there. And then they're going to give you multiple exhibits. And they're going to be on multiple tabs, so you have to go back and forth through it. By this time, you've already answered 90 questions. You're laboring, you're probably a little bit exhausted from, taking the test itself. And so you're going to have to home in. And the more you practice homing in right now, the easier it will be when you actually take your exam. And what do I want you to home in on? I want you to analyze the data, identify the strengths and the needs, and make one recommendation. Lastly, you have to explain how you're going to implement this recommendation and how will it be progress monitored, excuse me. And that's it. But I do want to point out a few factors of where people go wrong, because often they summarize, they guess, they list strategies with no connection to the data that's been given. And that will keep your score at a 1 or a 2. And we are aiming for a 4, but might fall amongst the 3 category. First, this rubric scoring scores you in 3 different ways, I think. One is completion, first of all. Did you answer all parts of the question? I know that sounds really simple, but sometimes the most important thing is to focus on what the question actually is asking you for. What does it want? And then the second is application of the content. Are your decisions accurate and appropriate for this student that they're presenting before you? And then the support. Did you use evidence from the data to prove your point? A strong response, score of a 4, must address all parts of the prompt. You have to use accurate professional reasoning within your response and include specific evidence from those exhibits, from those tabs that I told you that they're going to give you. Otherwise, you're not going to be as effective in your answering or in your score as you would like. And we're shooting for excellence. Well, let's take a look at an example, 2 in particular. One with no depth, and then another one with some depth to it. Here, it states that the student struggles with reading and needs help. Well, that's true. That's a familiar mistake that I've seen. This is not an analysis, it's a fact of matter statement. It's just naming the struggle, but on a surface level. But domain 5 wants you to go deeper and explain exactly what the data shows the student is having difficulty with, so that your recommendations actually match the need. This falls short for so many reasons, the ones that I have listed there. Too general, the specific skill is not identified, and the data connection is often non-existent and or not clearly directed to good instruction. But as always, I don't want you to just have the what not to do. I always want us to lean in what to do. So in my opinion, this next portion is a good start to a great response. The student demonstrates difficulty with reading comprehension, specifically making inferences from grade level text, as evidenced by low performance on comprehension assessment and incomplete written responses. This works because the specific skill gap is identified. Evidence from the data is applied, and a clear connection to the need and where the instructional support needs to happen next. And I want you to notice the difference. First response, it only names the struggle and it just stops. It flatlines right there. And then the second response shows exactly what the student is having difficulty with. And it ties back to the evidence. That's what domain 4 is looking for. And you're not just identifying a problem. You are looking for the barrier, diagnosing the need so that your suggested instruction actually makes sense. Something that might possibly, when put in action, will work. And with that, I want to get us into just a little bit more of a framework, an idea on how to position yourself. Now, I teach a lot of frameworks as I'm instructing through the various exams that I've had the pleasure to help people to overcome and pass. But in this one, I have 5 key points that I want to show you or share with you. And the first one is just to help you to focus is the data, identifying the strengths. You're going to look for what the student can do and patterns across the data that you're given within that set. Something might pop out like the student demonstrates strength in decoding single syllable words with 90% accuracy. That almost sounds very close to a written goal, right? Well, that's part of you identifying some of the strengths. Second step, identify the needs. This is where I see people miss it. Needs are not just statements like the student is bad at reading. You generalize that, but needs are functional gaps tied to performance. And what exactly does that mean? Well, functional tells how it shows up in real learning, not just a label or test scores. And then the gap is what's missing or not yet developed. And lastly, tied to a performance, it's proven by what the student is doing in the data that's presented to you. An example here to me is the student demonstrates difficulty with reading comprehension of grade level text, particularly in making inferences. It's what we said before. And in this example, you see the functional. What area of the learning? Reading comprehension, grade level text. Then the gap. What's missing or not yet developed? That's that difficulty in making inferences. And then how is it tied to the performance itself? What evidence would support this? This is the part where you add to the strength of your statement. You can state that it's visible, common errors like incorrect responses on comprehension questions, incomplete written answers, or maybe there's this reliance for this student on basic recall rather than deeply understanding the story's meaning. But before I talk about the other three that I have for you, I want to remind you that tonight is just the introduction. I'm helping you to see how to approach Domain 5. But tomorrow night, Tuesday, April the 14th, I want you to attend our final class in this cohort. That's where we actually practice this together. We break down the responses, we look at real examples, and while I guide you through the process, so it becomes clear. And if you're watching this later, you didn't miss it. We run SPED 186 cohorts on the second and the fourth Tuesdays of each month, where we meet, break down those competencies, and help you with your study habits to pass your state exam. So I want to invite you to come and join us when you're ready. Now, let's get back into it. Step 3. You need to focus on one recommendation. Not 3, not a list, but one. And it has to connect directly to the need. Now, I'm not going to say you can't put in a second one, but I'm going to caution you to stay away from a list. Step 4 is the implementation. This is where you're going to show that you are a specialist by answering questions like, what does it look like daily for this student? Who is responsible for implementing the instruction? And what supports will be used? And then my 5th and final strategy is the progress monitoring. Again, another area in which I have seen individuals not do as well as they could and lose a lot of points here. Because saying monitoring progress as a phrase in your sentence, it's just not enough. You must say how often, what tool, and what data will be used within your recommendation and your progress monitoring. So just for an example here, I would say weekly comprehension probes will be used to measure growth in inferencing skills with data tracked to adjust instruction. That's potentially what we could be using as a progress monitor for that student that was struggling with the comprehension. And before we dive a little bit deeper and talk through another scenario, I want to talk to you about what weaker responses actually do and what stronger responses do. I think it's a good idea to caution here, to stop here at this point to talk about these two, because again, if I'm seeing things stated in the prompt like reading fluency scores are below grade level, strong oral responses, maybe difficulty answering comprehension questions, and then teacher notes are going to be added in. Stuff like student avoids independent reading. There's a way to respond strongly to that, and there's a weaker way to respond to it. And I'm going to say that scoring a 1 or 2 is the weaker way, and scoring a 3 or 4 on the rubric is going to be your stronger one. So a weaker response is you actually restate the exhibit instead of analyzing it. It's a lot of you just pretty much copying what they put down with vague or general language that doesn't really lead to things that need to be done. And then misaligning the recommendation to the need, giving a recommendation that does not fit the need, off key. And my final weaker response comment is that sometimes it provides weak or non-existent progress monitoring at all on the exam. Stuff like the student struggles with reading and needs support. That's very general. Doesn't tell me the issue at all. But in a stronger response, I'm going to have layers put on. In the best of responses, I'm going to have all 5 points being pointed out. So in a stronger response, you want to describe the student strengths and their needs. You want to recommend those appropriate strategies, a few of them that are already listed in response to the student that we were talking about. And then you want to explain how best practices are going to be implemented. And the caveat, the way to close this down, is to tell how it's going to be monitored and measured. That is going to be your best response. So let's look at it in 3 phases. The first one is what I read to you a few moments ago. The second one, I generalized. And I only put in 3 pieces of it. Like the student demonstrates some oral reading language skills as evidenced by participation in class discussion. The student demonstrates with reading comprehension and independent reading stamina. We're going to implement guided reading with scaffolded comprehension strategies, including think alouds, modeling for them. That's great, and that's a good start. But the strongest of starts is going to put in that implementation and that monitoring piece, where the teacher is going to provide the actual workings. Here in this one, small group 3 times a week, using level text and modeled strategies. That's that recommendation strengthened with how am I going to implement it? And then lastly, the monitoring part. Bi-weekly comprehension assessments and reading logs that will track progress. Now remember, these are just examples that I'm providing with you. And it's just the tip. This is the start to a 3 or 4 level response. And I want to stop for just a moment again to make sure that you avoid a few mistakes. The first one, I shared it, but I want to share it again because it's the one that basically there's no elaboration. Retelling the exhibits. The rubric itself, when you get a chance to read it, it literally says weak responses just restate the information being told. Another mistake, no connection between the data and the recommendation. If your strategy doesn't match the need, you're going to lose points. Then too many strategies. I know I'm repeating some of these mistakes, and for a reason, to make certain that you just don't do it. And this third one, too many strategies. The test typically wants one or two strongly aligned decisions where you're writing in depth about that recommendation, about that strategy that you're going to utilize. And then, of course, my last one, pointing back to the progress monitoring. Sometimes people are writing general weak monitoring statements, things that don't show exactly what you're going to do, but just reference it. Something like monitor progress over time. Yes, give me more. You have to say, and you have to give a time frame. I mentioned weekly earlier. I believe also earlier we said 3-week monitoring. Whatever the suggestion, put a time frame to it. Then the specific tool that you're going to use and the specific skill that it's going to attack. That's how you'll do well on domain 5. And that's how you will make certain that you are showing those that are reading your writing, and you understand, and that you can make good, correct, appropriate decisions using data. As always, I'm glad that you made your way over here to TT Innovates. It is my pleasure to serve you, to help you to pass this exam. I hope that you have enjoyed all 5 portions of our walkthrough about the specific domains in depth. And if you are realizing right now that you've been approaching this exam in the wrong manner, first of all, here's my pep talk. You're not by yourself, but this is exactly why I've created 2 options. One, our Texas Blueprint session that I talk about throughout many of my videos, because it's a way to get you started. It's a DIY option that we offer just to point you in the right direction. And then the second, which is our SPED 186 cohort, which we're currently in right now and would love for you to join us. It's where we walk you through all 5 domains. We practice responses and we talk real-time feedback. Our next cohort starts April the 21st, and I'm going to leave details in the show notes for you. But if you are looking for help today, tomorrow night, we're going to go into a deeper dive, and I want you to sign up there. Because to me, what I've experienced over my career is that strategy can change everything. So I hope that I see you tomorrow night. I'm glad that you arrived here tonight, and I'll see you again. Sign up, join our community. We're looking forward to seeing you. Good night, everyone.